2026, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alden Iawani. Our very special guest today, Manzano head football coach Stephen Johnston. His Monarchs have won 3 in a row, a win over Hope on Saturday, 40-14. And Coach, it's good to have you on the show. You got Monarchs are getting some momentum. Got to have a big game against Portales on Saturday. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. We appreciate it.
Coach, a good win against Hope. And let's go back because I covered your game against Highland, the opening game of the season when Highland beat you 55-28. But I thought there was a lot of meat left on the bone, even that game for your offense. A lot of mistakes, a lot of penalties, and you mentioned I called you I think the next day and you were watching film. But 3 wins in a row. You've been mentioning that you're trying to build. It's only since 2017 when Manzano, led by Jordan Bird. Andrew Erickson, was it Andrew Erickson, Ivory Sod, that back. I don't think he every time he went through the line, he falls forward for 2 yards, man. That's a loaded team. Won the state championship. 7 years later, things have changed. You don't get as many kids there. The enrollment's down, but you'd mentioned to me what you're trying to do there. Talk a little bit about how it was after that first game and what your thoughts were. Highland, Amiri Mumba, I think, had 4 touchdowns, and Highland had a good performance that night. But you've kind of turned things around. Tell us how you've done that.
Well, I think the way we scheduled, obviously, is you want to schedule some quality opponents to give yourself a measurement where you're at as a team. And Highland revealed some things that we wanted to get better on, especially on the defensive side of the ball. When you allow the points and the yardage that we did, we went back and looked at the mistakes that we made. And we were able to say, hey, there's some positive things that we can draw from this. Because I think when you look at a loss, too many people get real negative about yourself. And we were able to sit our guys down and watch our film and grade it and say, look, you're there. If we'll make these kind of changes, we're going to be right in the thick of those things. And so after Highland, and when you lose early, I'd rather lose early than lose late. You make those changes, and you can see that after the last 3 games, we just feel like we're continuing to get better each week. And Highland is a good football team, and they're going to be really good towards the end of the year once they get him back. And we've been fortunate the last 3 games to feel like we're building some good momentum throughout the rest of the year and making sure we get better, especially for Portales this week.
Portales, the defending their runner-ups last year, they lost to Lovington in the state championship game. It's going to present a different challenge, no question about it. But coming into the season, one of the things I read in the paper was that your offensive line you felt was a strength. Ricky Simmons is the nose guard. Is it Ricky?
Ricky Scroggins, yes.
Ricky Scroggins, the nose guard. James Vautier, the quarterback. Broden Price. You've got some talent at skilled positions. I thought that. It was again we mentioned against Highland. There's a lot of penalties and things that you hurt yourselves. I thought there was a break, the lightning break delay, and then when the third quarter started, I thought Highland had the upper hand after that. But since then, like I said, beating Rio Grande 56-6, Del Norte 42-26, and now Hope 3 in a row. You've changed some things around, and how the kids responded to your what you're trying to do there.
We spend a lot of time on our character, and we want to make sure that we're the right kind of people each week. So obviously we've had 2 games. We had 2 games in a row that had lightning delays. And so with lightning delays, you have to figure out how do you keep your team focused? How do you keep your coach? How do you tell your coaches to make sure that we're trying to get these guys prepared, even when bad things really happen? Because in a football game, there's a ton of things that happen that are not under your control. And so after that Highland game, we said, look, we didn't respond the way we needed to respond. And so one of our key slogans, when things are good and when things are bad, is win the response. And so we felt like we didn't win the response versus Highland. And then the next 3 weeks, we've chosen to, our kids have done a really good job of deciding that we're going to win the response. If there's a good play, if there's a bad play, we're going to respond. And, we're really led by some good senior leadership. And I think you're always going to go as far as your seniors are going to go. And James, our quarterback, is a senior. Ricky Scroggins, our nose guard, is a senior. We've got a couple guys on the offensive line that are seniors. Some of our major skill guys are seniors. That makes a big difference into how your program progresses, how your seniors decide to lead and respond when things are good and when things are bad.
you came from Artesia. You played at
Yep,
Artesia for Cooper Henderson.
I did.
You talked to me. It's funny. I talked to you last year, and I talked to you a little bit before the Highland game. I feel like we kind of know each other a little bit. We had a
Yep,
very nice talk, and you mentioned building a culture.
yep,
Manzano had that culture for that team there in 2017 was
yep.
you know that's a very
Yeah,
good team. You
yeah,
got a speed at quarterback. Jordan Bird went on to play at San Diego State, and Andrew Erickson played for UNM. I don't know if Ivory Sod played anywhere. I can't remember, but Ivy Sod. But they had a lot of guys. The culture was there. There was,
yeah,
Chad Adcox had
yep.
coached there, sat out a year, and then went back to coach at Sandia. But
Mhm.
you talked about building a winning culture here at Manzano. Talk a little bit. We have to hear this about the culture at Artesia, playing for Cooper Henderson, wins. And you just mentioned to me about Coach Jeremy Maupin. They're having some early season. We wouldn't call it struggles. They'll be okay. But
Yep.
talk about the culture there of Artesia football, the Bulldog Bowl, 30-some championships.
Mhm.
Uh, the city, that football program expects to win.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the culture that you're trying to build at Manzano.
And I think that's the culture we're trying to build here is the expectation that we are going to win. But it's got to win in every category of your life. We've got to win in the classroom. We've got to win. We've got to win on outside of the classroom, outside of our school building. How do we handle life situations? And so when I got here, obviously the culture had been established. We had some really good head coaches over the last few years. You had Coach Ocampo, now at
Very
Centennial, have
good.
some great success. Coach Adcox did a great job here, and the people underneath him, and then Coach Martinez, who ended up going to be at Rio Rancho to be their defensive coordinator. So there had been some coaches that established the tradition and the culture of what Manzano football was, and we saw that the demographics had changed quite a bit at Manzano. Like the enrollment numbers had changed, and so we had to say, all right, this is what we were at one point. That team that won in 2017 was just absolutely special. Like I've got a couple coaches on my staff that were on that staff at the time, and they talked about how it was just it was lining up each week was almost so much. I mean, it was so easy because you just felt like you got to out athlete people at every position. And I think the thing that I was able to take from Artesia is people always assumed in Artesia you had better athletes than everybody else. And that's not always the case, but you had kids that believed that they were going to win and they expected to win. Here, we're trying to get them to expect to win each week. How do we expect to win, but we've got to make sure our preparation matches our expectations. And once we are able to do that, we're going to keep moving in the direction that we want to do. And we don't really talk a ton about wins and losses. We talk about make sure we get better every day. And if we're getting better every day, by the time we play a game, we're going to be good. And Artesia has the exponential expectations. When you win 32 state titles, it becomes a routine. It becomes just something you do on an average yearly basis. That's not something that has been established. And Albuquerque is just it's a different animal. I mean, we have to, football has in Albuquerque wise, we don't have middle school football. So you have to dive into your YAFL programs. And when I got here 4 years ago, we didn't have a YAFL team. We didn't have a YAFL program. And so when you pour into those younger guys, because they have a choice whether they can go to Sandia, Highland, El Dorado, we're establishing that culture that they want to come to us. They want to come play for Manzano. They want to wear the purple. They want to be a part of what we're trying to do, which we think is unique. We think it's different, which is okay with us. But the expectation is we want to be in the mix of it every year. But it does take a lot of different pieces over time to do that. And well, I could talk all day on culture and expectations, but I took the expectations of we've got to build the belief that we can win. And that's those kids in Artesia believe they can win. Our kids here that we playing as seniors, they don't know anything about the 2017 state championship. They weren't they were little bitty kids, and some of them may remember going to the game. But we want them to believe each year that you should be in that game. That should be an average expectation, but it takes a lot of things to get to that point. And it takes off-season, summer program, what you do with your parents, what you do with your community members. It takes a lot.
Academics, being a big part of that. And you mentioned team building character. But in a sense, when Manzano won the championship in 2017, and again, it's only been 7 years, but you
Yep.
mentioned demographics. Highland went through that. I'm still in the Highland district here.
Yep.
They went through that. They,
Yeah.
we used to get kids from the base, Altura. They don't get that anymore. They don't.
No.
It's a different way. And Phil Lovato and Justin Woody and Lonnie Neal and all the great Highland coaches over there have had to learn how to deal with the
Yeah.
kids that are at that school.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. They had to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
But I think in a way, and I know I remember you talking to you about that Artesia building blocks. I remember when I covered Artesia versus Pius in 2015, going down on the field.
Don't remind me
watching,
that. Yeah.
watching the way Artesia went through drills. They had that. You just tell commitment to excellence. Al Davis used to say that with the Raiders, right? Commitment to excellence, commitment to winning. You're expected to win there, and Coach, as much as anyone, it's hard to hoist those blue trophies, man.
Yeah.
It really is. But I think you having come from Artesia and seen the success and coaching under a Hall of Famer with Cooper Henderson, I think you and Coach Malpin coached together.
We did. Coach Maupin and I were like, we've been really good friends our entire lives. We played together in high school. We roomed together in college. I was in his wedding. So we go back a long way. And Jeremy understands those expectations and really embraces that. And that's a fun thing. And I like what you mentioned when you talked about the way you warm up. And I think that's kind of what we're doing a good job of. Now we're not quite there. It's how you do everything. If you do the little things is how you do everything. How you practice, how you warm up. I mean, if you just go through the motions on the warm up, how do you expect to prepare yourself to play well? And we did a really good job there. And I learned from Coach Henderson. I really learned how to work. I think Coach Henderson, of anything else, smart football guy, never taking anything away from the football portion of it. But Coach Henderson knew how to work, and he was extremely consistent with his messages to our team and to our coaches every week. And wasn't a yeller, wasn't a screamer, wasn't an intense guy. I am. I'm an intense guy. You'll see me jumping up and down the sidelines, but I learned a lot from Coach, and I learned from a lot of coaches. I learned from Jeremy. I mean, the success he had at Los Lunas, I've been able to talk to him about the things that he took from Artesia and was able to take on to Los Lunas, and now the things that he learned at Los Lunas and was able to bring back to Artesia. You learn from a lot of people.
No doubt about it. I don't mean to interrupt you, Coach.
No, it's
we need
okay.
to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this year's version of the Manzano Monarchs after these messages on the Sports Desk.
Not punting. Receiver goes into motion. Ariano. There's one out. He's got a man open. Got him. Touchdown. Rio Rancho, David Butler.
Oh, he's wide open.
Receiver, wide open, caught touchdown. So they go Wildcat. Parnell Flat, a 31-yard touchdown pass to Isai Herrera. Just mentioned where's he at. Clock. They're going to the corner. Porras is wide open. Touchdown, Goddard. Boyer waits the snap. Instead it's a handoff. Oh, check that flash and pass. There it is. Williams nailed it. Touchdown. Hope Huskies. Braylon Williams. I told you, look over on that left side. One-on-one coverage. Off tackle run. Makes one miss, makes two miss. Bye-bye. Say good night and let one angle possible. No. Touchdown, Daniel Amaro. Stop the gift to Holloway Jr. Holloway's got some room. Now he finds a lane to the outside and he's off to the races. Holloway Herschel scores on a touchdown. Here comes the pressure. Able to dump it off the cat. Harris, what a stiff arm. Two of them from the pressure. Three stiff arms. Harris still on his feet. And Gads inside the 10-yard line. Back for the second down play. 1:41 remaining here. They'll keep it on the ground. Holloway Jr. put the game on ice. Young fella rushing all the way for the Pius house call. Herschel Holloway Jr. on the score. Kicks it straight up. Amaro chases back, catches it, makes the first man miss. Tries to spin out, makes the second man miss. Takes off, turns on the Jets, finds the sideline. Watch out! One man to beat. He beats him. Bye-bye, birdie. Touchdown, Las Cruces. About it. He said, hey, you guys blew that play dead. This time it's a strip, a fumble, and a scoop, and a big fella is rumbling and stumbling. It's Leandro Garcia going to the house for the Pius touchdown.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
A burglary takes place in the United States approximately every 15 seconds. International Protective Service is your answer for commercial and residential security in all of Albuquerque. IPS will work with your monitoring company for fast, reliable response times. You can rest easy knowing you, your family, or your company is watched over by International Protective Service. Call International Protective Service today.
Rudy's is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on our Facebook page. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today, Manzano head football coach Stephen Johnston. Coach, you mentioned the culture that you're trying to build there at Manzano High School. You had a lot of years at Artesia as the defensive coordinator. You mentioned, though, to me just a minute ago, you weren't quite sure you wanted to be a head coach. And, people don't understand, we see it every Sunday after Saturday football, Sunday football. I was at the press conference yesterday with Coach Mendenhall, and it's the weirdest thing when he deals with the press. Very quiet, right? We expect to execute, and I'm like straining to hear him. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, where's the fire and brimstone? But it comes from somewhere, because I've heard players say they'd run through the wall for that guy. Yeah. But dealing with the press, he's just really quiet, precise, calculated. He's going to say what you asked him. That's it. He's not going to expand upon it. But no one can question that dude's football acumen at all. No. Brilliant guy, brilliant football coach. But you mentioned you weren't sure you wanted to be a head football coach. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I was really content being, coaching track and being a defensive coordinator, because I got to game plan all those things. I've worked less on football as the head football coach than I ever have as when I worked on as a defensive coordinator. I think the challenge, I mean, I got to a point in my career where I wanted a different challenge. And I knew that, coaching Artesia was going to be a great thing because I have all my families there, every single one of them. And I knew that for me to take the next step in my career, I would have to be willing to go somewhere different. And so I kind of started thinking about it and praying about it. And I said, all right, I'm going to make a short list of the schools or a short list of places that I would think about and venture out. And, this all happened during the COVID year, and that was a tough year for everybody.
Oh yeah.
And so I made a really tough decision in the middle of COVID to try to do something different, to take a new leap. I mean, I had some great examples of coaches that were around me that were great head coaches that, I've been around guys like Mike Worley, who was at Rio Rancho, and he was in Artesia for years. I've been around Jeff Willingham, who's been the defensive coordinator in Hobbs and Carlsbad and was in Artesia, Cooper Henderson, Rex Henderson, Jeremy Maupin. I've been around a lot of quality coaches. And so I believed over time that maybe if there's the right opportunity that presents itself, then I would be willing to take the leap to be a head coach. And it is very different. It is very different. It is a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. It is the best job in the world, and it is also the worst job at the same time. You're dealing with things that people never see on a daily basis. They just see what you put out there on a Friday night or a Saturday or Thursday for us. And you're dealing with grades, you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with things that nobody can understand. I mean, our kids are walking in the doors with hurts and fears and all sorts of other baggage. So you're not always wearing the cap of a coach. You're wearing a cap of a counselor or a doctor or parent, because we got so many kids who come from untraditional homes. And so as a head coach, you have to think about the whole macro view of your program and your school, and how do you represent your school? How do you represent your administration, your student body, your community? And, as a position coach, you're thinking very micro. You're thinking of, what do we do on third down? What's our formation? What's our coverage here? What routes do we want to run on this situation?
Whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And now I think the best thing I do is I have great coaches. I have great coaches on my staff that, we all have different personalities. And that was the best thing, probably like Coach Mendenhall, is he doesn't have to be the either got to get after you and yell at you and scream at you, but people will play for him and run through a wall. I think if you surround yourself with the right coaches, the culture that you want to implement is so much easier when everybody's bought in. And so I've got a great staff that supports our vision. And if one guy's having a rough day, or one coach needs to be tough and one coach needs to be not the good cop, bad cop, but we support each other that way. So I've got a good staff that really does things like that for me.
That really helps. Let's go over, we only got a couple of minutes here, and I want to make sure we talk about your offensive unit. Quarterback James Vautier had a good game against Hope. He's a senior. You've got a good offensive line. Tell us a little bit about your offensive unit.
Oh man, they're doing, they've come together quite a bit over the last 4 weeks, and throughout the summer too. If you look at our offensive line, we've got 3 seniors on the offensive line. That makes a difference when you have offensive linemen that have been able to work together for a while.
Continuity matters.
Continuity, yeah, and just taking pride, because most people, they don't really pay attention to the offensive line until they see a sack, and then they start screaming at them or whatever the case may be. But they've really worked together the last few weeks on the little things, the intricate things, and we've got some skill guys all over the place that we're really, really pleased with. That they've got some speed, that they're taking pride in, and they're not just playing football, that they're playing basketball, they're running track, they're wrestling, they're playing multiple sports. That's helping us. I mean, all these kids play a bunch of sports. It's really helping us. You can see it right now is we're able to get the ball in the hands of a lot of kids.
Okay, you mentioned you got some veterans there, and having a veteran quarterback, James Vautier, that helps. He's been there. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's a good quarterback. Tell us about your defensive unit.
Oh man, we got an aggressive defensive unit. I think that's the one thing I would tell you about our kids is they're very, very aggressive. We're not always that big. I mean, our nose guard's pretty big guy. and we've got some beef at some other places, but we've got kids that are just, they really, really, really love playing defensive football. You know, as a former defensive coordinator, I love the way that they play. We're one of our goals every week is to get 8 guys to the football. And then the last 4 weeks, they've gotten that goal each week. So we get to put the little sticker on our board, but they take a lot of pride in being able to just line up, be fast, be aggressive, be physical, execute with great technique, turn the ball. I mean, help encourage those turnovers by getting people to the football. And you know, they've become a much better tackling and physical unit, and they take pride on being angry guys, which is good.
You know, when it helps when you have a guy like Scroggins and nose tackle that can eat up a lot of tackles and get to let your linebackers make some plays. That's got to help. You know, talk a little bit about the game on Saturday. That's good. It's at Wilson, right?
Yes, sir.
Talk a little good. It's Coach Ramirez at Port Alice.
Coach Ramirez.
Right?
Yep,
A lot of respect.
Ramirez.
I had him on the show last year. Like him a lot. You know, and again, they've had a pretty good start to the season so far. Talk a little bit about the challenges they present for your Manzano football team.
You know, like we've told our players and we've told our community is like, you know, there's a reason why those guys have been in the state championship several times over the last 5 years. And if they've been the runner up and they've won one, Coach Ramirez has established a place where they're going to be competitive in that class year in, year out. And they also in turn expect to win. I'm watching film on those guys. They're really, really, you know, they've had to change a little bit offensively what they've done with some personnel, but I'm always just impressed on how really physical their offensive line is. There's probably the biggest offensive line we faced this year, and they've also got a really aggressive defense, really aggressive defensive line. They've got playmakers on the outside, but they also have some two-way guys that play defense. They're also they're receivers. They're going to pose a very, very big challenge for us this week, but we're really looking forward to playing a team like Port Alice, especially the team that I don't think in Manzano's history we ever played them. I don't believe they've ever played us. We've never played them. So it's kind of fun for both of us to play a team that you know nothing about other than what you've seen on film. But we know they're going to be really good.
Your kids, I think, you know, winning 3 in a row is good, but I'm sure your team is really looking forward to this. And then you got this challenge. Then you've got Chaparral and Academy. You mentioned the district has changed. You went to 4A, and you mentioned there's challenges and good coaching and good players in 4A. Pius is in your district. We never would have thought we'd see Manzano and Pius in the same district. I go back years. You know, when Manzano was a 6A power and Pius was a 3A power then, and now things have changed. Districts have changed. Demographics have changed. So many things have changed, and that's a challenge for you as a head coach to keep up with all of it and keep things together.
I think what you just have to do is accept it. Accept that things have changed. I mean, what's the consistency? Like, what's the old saying in education? If you want something that's consistent, it's change. And change is going to happen on a yearly basis. And so we just have to coach the kids that are walking in our doors. And we're going to coach them hard, and we're going to love them. We're going to care about them. And we're going to pour into our YAFO programs. And so that, winning solves a lot of issues, right? If you want your culture to change quite a bit, then you want your winning helps. But we want to make sure that winning 3 games isn't, at this point in our season, winning 3 games is great. But if you win the rest of them, but you lose the last one, it doesn't mean much. And so our expectation is we want to win that we want to win the blue trophy. We want that to be something that is an expectation of us year in and year out, regardless of what kids we have in our program or not. And, talent helps. Not going to act like talent doesn't help, but we want the right people too. And you look at our district, Coach Flakes is doing a good job at St. Pius. Coach Lee's doing a good job at Albuquerque Academy. Coach Cage is doing a good job at Valencia. We've got a lot of quality teams now in our district that are not going to just, we weren't just going to come down to this classification and dominate. Yeah. And that's okay with us.
That wasn't going to happen. Coach Stephen Johnston, head football coach at Manzano High School.
Sure.
We sure appreciate you being our guest on the sports desk, and we wish you the best of luck against Port Alice this weekend.
Yes, sir. Go Monarchs.
That's right. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the sports desk.